Big Swert Gaming.
Hey guys, what's up? This is Christian and Kaitlyn from Big Swert. We are joined today by a special guest, James Myers. He is my best friend, and today we are going to do a spoiler cast for The Last of Us Part 2. We're going to start off with some spoiler-free stuff. We're going to talk about some other little bitty things, and then I will reiterate, we will be very deep in spoilers. We're not going to shut up about it. So if you don't want to get spoiled and you haven't beat this game, you need to leave right now. Come back later. Leave now.
The little X at the top of your screen.
Yeah, I'll put a little thing saying spoilers whenever we're getting hot and heavy. So first off, spoiler free. What did we think about this game, James?
I really liked it. And I feel like as I've looked back on it, I've been analyzing it a lot, and I've just been appreciating it even more. Like, I know that I like something when I can't stop thinking about it afterwards. So I carved out the whole weekend to play it. I played it nonstop. I actually think the way that I played it, which I'll talk about later due to how the game is structured, was kind of optimal to provide that experience. But when I was at work on Monday, I wanted to keep playing. And I'd been done by that point. So, but always kept having thoughts popping up in my head, thinking back on it, and it was an incredible experience. The story was phenomenal. Wasn't exactly what I was expecting, but I think that was in a good way. I feel like it's the gameplay we knew from the first one, but just enhanced, just better. I really liked going prone. I felt like the stealth was a lot better in this game. Like, I felt like in part one, there were so many opportunities where I almost felt like it was designed for you to not be able to do stealth perfectly. Like, at some point, like, someone just would find you and it would turn into like just punching the crap out of everybody trying to get out, which I like that. And I like that franticness to it, but I felt like this afforded you more opportunities. Like, I loved going prone in the grass and just popping heads. It was just great. But I enjoyed a lot of the new characters that were introduced. Surprisingly big cast. Yeah, I feel like the story really hit for me, especially looking back. But yeah, so very, very positive for me. I really enjoyed it.
I don't even know how to follow that, James, because that was perfect and basically sums up everything that I felt about the game. I definitely, and I wasn't sure I would feel this way playing through it, but at the end, I definitely think that it was, in my mind, a masterpiece, and I liked it better than the first game. And that shocks me because the first game has, for the past 7 years, been my all-time favorite game. And while I definitely think that people who didn't enjoy this game, like, they all have valid concerns. I don't think this game is for everybody, and that's okay. But for me, it just was a perfect experience. Even though it was awful and heartbreaking and tore me up, I, like you said, can't stop thinking about this game. And I finished Monday, and afterwards I was like, okay, I have to play something like lighthearted and fun. And I've just been sitting here all week not being able to play anything else because I just want to play. Or I've actually been watching some other people play because I now like watching people's reactions, especially at certain points of the game. I'm getting a sick pleasure of seeing how other people reacted and comparing it to how I reacted. But yeah, we'll get into it. But I definitely agree with what you said, James, that I think it took the mechanics of the first game and just made them better. And it was just a better experience, in my opinion. Christian?
First off, I just want to say I love this game so much. For me personally, I wasn't really, and James knows this more than anyone, I wasn't really that hyped for it. I mean, I was like, okay, it's Last of Us Part 2. I remember Last of Us Part 1. I played it twice when it first came out, maybe. And I think literally within the first 2 hours, I texted James. Was like, "Oh yeah, I'm fully in. I love this game so far." And even since I haven't played the first one in so long, just being reminded of, especially the story beats, Joel's decision from the end of the first one. Spoilers if you haven't played part 1, you heathens.
What are you even doing here?
Yeah, like why are you here?
Go away.
Why are you here? Go away.
Play the first one.
It's like a trillion other videos. Come on.
Yeah. But yeah, it's especially what you both said, because my thought process, especially for sequels, it's very common for me to just say, okay, it's more of the first one, so I know what to expect. And this blew my expectations through the roof and then some. We went to Mars with this. That's really
Space theme. I like it.
Ooh. It's probably the best video game I've ever played. It's probably my favorite video game I've ever played, biases aside.
I was going to say, is this barring Spider-Man?
Yeah, this is bias aside.
I feel like we have to disclose
full
that.
Disclosure. In the same vein for James for Kingdom Hearts 3 or any Kingdom Hearts related anything. Biases aside, this is my favorite game of all time. It's the best video game I've ever played. I cried. I laughed. I've never felt so many emotions during a story that I didn't expect would hit me, a very dense person. But can't recommend it enough. And just go play this game if you haven't already. And that's really it.
Yeah, and sorry if you came here looking for someone to tear this
shit on it.
apart.
Yeah, no, we're not.
Hate it. Sorry.
You can find plenty of that on. Yeah. There's a lot.
Yeah, I'm not even gonna name names. Just go watch people.
Yeah.
But yeah, that's a good point to bring up. If you're here to watch people shit on this game, go away. We don't want you. So next thing we really want to talk about is they added a lot of accessibility settings to this game for people, for better or for worse. You know, it enhanced the gameplay or even subtly changed the way it played itself. I know the only thing I really had turned on was the pinging system, which when you're in listen mode, you can press circle for items and artifacts, and you can press square for enemies. And it would even tag enemies that you couldn't see in listen mode, aka the worst enemies in this entire game. I even got scared by one last night during my platinum run. I think that's the only thing I had turned on, really. And you could also change like the distance that the pulse could go, and I had that turned all the way up just because I'm so terrified and anal about finding materials, especially like ammo and supplies to craft.
How did you say ammo?
Ammo?
Yeah, I thought you said ammo.
No, ammo.
Kind of sounded like ammo, yeah.
It sounded like ammo. I was like, is this some deep southern
No, it's
Texas
ammo.
accent that you
said?
Accent
really, your accent really came out there, buddy.
Yeah.
Well,
I take back what I said when we were talking earlier.
Stop.
Must be a Texas thing, huh?
Ammo. I digress. Yeah, I'm paranoid about having. I need 3 Molotovs in my inventory at all times. So,
especially for the big boys.
So that's basically how I played, crouched the entire time, just pinging, waiting for stuff to pop up for me to go collect. And then once the bad guys were here, I was fully equipped every single time. I never really ran out of ammo except for a certain boss fight. We'll get to that later.
I was just thinking, I was like, that would have been really helpful during a certain boss fight.
Yeah.
I did not use that feature.
We'll talk about that later. James?
I'm surprised that when I got back to work on Monday that I was able to type, because I swear I thought I broke my thumb from spamming that circle scan button that you were talking about. I was so anal looking for collectibles. Even when I was in the walking segments where like you're 99% sure there's no collectibles, there. I'm like, there's gonna be something. This will be what I miss. Circle, 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 circle. Like just sending out pulses. Like it goes grayscale when you use that. I think I saw the game in black and white like 50% of my playtime. Like it was bad. I was both happy and disappointed that this game did not have the detailed breakdown stats that the Naughty Dog games sometimes have, like with it was in Last of Us Remastered and on Uncharted 4, how you can see, well, they have playtime somewhere else, but you can see your playtime, enemies killed, items used, types of whatever. Mm-hmm. If they had a counter for how many times I used that scan.
Oh no.
It's not good. It's not good. I talked to Christian at one point and I was like, so like how often are you using that? Because I'm using it like a lot. He's like, oh, I'm using it a lot. I'm like, do you think you're getting the collectibles? He's like, yeah, I think I'm doing a pretty good job. Like, and I'm like, I think I'm doing it more. He's like, no, like I'm really using it. I'm like, no, like you're doubling back, man. I'm tripling back. Like I'm checking everything. So yeah, so that's mostly what I used for the first playthrough. I experimented with, I don't think it was accessibility, but there was a little thing you could turn on that it would give you a notification every time you pick something up, which was kind of cool. It'd be like bandage 0.25. So you could kind of see like what the percentage was.
What it like, was that tied in like it would automatically pick it up so then it would tell you? Or?
No, you could just turn it on so it would notify you every time you pick something up. Because I felt like a lot of the times I would grab something so quickly that I wouldn't see what it was.
Oh,
or like
okay.
I'd pick up an amount of parts.
And it would tell you.
Yeah, and it was also cool because if you go and you pick up like 8 parts, 1 part, 1 part, by the time the notification pops up, it'll say 10 parts. So I liked that it just made it easier for me to kind of think, when should I go check? Like, when should I go upgrade? So that was cool. I think that's all I really did for the first playthrough. And then for my kind of 0.5 playthrough of collectible cleanup, didn't have much cleaning up to do because of the alluded circle spamming that I talked about. But I messed with the settings that make the game like stupid easy, like how you can go prone and be invisible.
Yeah,
it's fun. So that makes it easy just to sneak past encounters and just get to the collectible you need and then leave the chapter. And then I was going back and watching some of the E3 2018 demo, and I saw that in the demo they had awareness indicators, which is a setting that's not enabled by default. So I was like, that looks kind of cool. So for my New Game Plus, I've been using the awareness indicators.
What does that do?
It gives you, when you're being detected, it'll kind of show like a white line kind of in the direction of whenever someone's seeing you, like, around Ellie. And it turns red when you're detected.
Oh, okay. Because
it kind of does have awareness indicators by default.
That's what I thought. I was like, I didn't play with that setting, but I thought I had that setting already.
It's not to the extent of blatantly showing you, oh, hey, it'll be like a very faint white glow on the left of the screen, and you can kind of hear it if you're playing with like headsets, where you'd be like, and you go this way, and it's like, oh, there's a guy way over there that is not going to see you.
Which you should play with a headset if you are still watching this and haven't played it, or you played it and didn't use a headset.
Yeah,
it's definitely
which I will also say,
different experience.
These enemies, 20/20 vision. Can't imagine the amount of times that I'm sneaking around and I stand up and I'm like, who can see me? Like, I've literally murdered everyone. And then you look and there's someone like over the hill past like 3 streets. And there's like there's something over there. Like, stop it.
But I felt like I also had, it felt like certain NPCs were more dumb than others, because I felt like sometimes I would be crouching and like sneaking up on someone and they would kind of like turn their head, and I was like, how can you not see me? Because so many of them had such good vision that I was always terrified that they were always going to be able to see me. And sometimes when they couldn't, I was like, can they really not see me? But I don't know. I didn't touch accessibility features during my first playthrough, and I kind of wish I had. But my next playthrough, like, I want to do the skip puzzle features and go through, do the collectibles, because while I tried to get as many collectibles as I could, I can't remember my total count. I mean, it was something over 100, but I know I missed tons, and I was only proud of myself for I did all the safes without like actually looking for them, and I was like, oh, awesome. But yeah, I don't know, I just kind of wanted to I played it through on hard, and there were a few times where I so desperately wanted to change the features, and I kind of wish I had, because I wish my first playthrough could have just been solely for story and not having certain bosses that I just kept dying.
You played it on hard first playthrough?
Yeah. I
No, thank you.
No.
I don't know why. I don't normally
Kaitlyn, are
do
you
that.
okay?
No. I'm traumatized. I'll never recover.
I feel like that's where most of your emotional distress from this game came from.
Well, and I didn't sleep because of it.
It left us broken. It probably left you just a little bit more broken. Like, that's
shattered.
It's punishing enough, like, inherently. Like,
if someone whistles, I'm gonna drop to the floor, like, in real life.
Those were worse than clickers for me.
It was really hard, but I don't know, it was fun. But I want to say that I love that Naughty Dog has just been so ambitious with their accessibility features. And I know, like, Uncharted 4, they've already been like a huge advocate for accessibility features, but they really knocked it out of the park and have just made it so that anybody can play this game. And if you hate accessibility featers, just fuck off.
Just play it, or fuck off. Yeah.
Fuck off.
That'd be a really weird, like, a lot of things to hate in this life, but I just hate accessibility features. Games should be impossible to play.
Right. Yeah. Like, screw you if you have anything that's bars you from playing a video game without accessibility features. Like, if you're visually impaired, hearing impaired, like, why are people so angry that games make it easier for those people to be able to enjoy and actually play games?
I think it gets that discussion gets kind of interesting when you talk about, like, the Souls games, which are literally the design around those games is meant to be soul crushing. Bit of a pun there. So I said that's usually where people are like, you can change it, but, like, don't change it for that. And I felt that before, where I'm like, I'm glad this game doesn't have difficulty settings, because I would get stuck and be like, I could just put it on easy. I could blah, blah, blah. But that takes away so much of the enjoyment of powering through. And, like, when you beat something that difficult, it's just like, yes, like, it's one of the best feelings I've ever had. But
for a game like
I'm
that,
not saying
you should just be
them, but it's an interesting shade to the argument, I think.
Well, I think if you have a game like that, you could just do it so that in the beginning you choose an option that's like, once I play with these settings, I can't change them.
Mm-hmm.
So then, like, you can't actually go back and change them. But then other people can choose, like, yes, if I want to, I can change the difficulty and other accessibility features. You know, like, best of both worlds, because I feel like all games should be inclusive for all gamers.
And going off of that, hopefully Naughty Dog challenges everyone else. I think they've set the new standard. Like, this is where the bar is.
Mm-hmm.
Like, people should let the high tide raise all the boats. You know, like, let people get there too, regardless of the type of game. It's possible. This
and as a PR, someone who works in PR, it's great PR for your game, because reporters will write about it.
Yep.
So you know what? If you're gonna be selfish, just do it for that reason. You're not gonna make it for gamers. Just do it for yourself. But you should really be doing it for gamers. And if you're not, then maybe don't make video games.
Bring back cheat codes.
Yes, please.
Yes, bring back cheat codes.
Kaitlyn, what was your final playtime?
almost 27 hours.
Oh, mine was 25 hours, 33 minutes.
29 hours and 45 minutes.
Nice. Which makes sense. You tripled back. Yeah, I would go back once. Christian would go back twice, and you.
Yeah,
It adds 2-hour increments.
Oh, right, no, the opposite. Maybe he went back once. I went
Yeah.
back
Yeah.
once.
and it showed whenever me and James were doing our collectible runs, where you would just go through chapter select and see how many you missed, and I'd be like, "Oh, I only missed 5 in this area," and he's like, "Yeah, I missed none. I missed 1." You know, and it's like, "Oh, I need 1/4," and James is like, "Oh, I got all that." How many collectibles do you think you had to go back for, James?
15, probably.
Yeah, I probably had 20, 25.
Yeah.
Like,
I think you had more than that. I think you had more than that.
because once I got into the second half of the game, it was like I only needed one thing.
Okay.
And there was a lot of stuff, especially in the more condensed areas where I already had everything.
Mm-hmm.
Out of 266 collectibles, I only got 171. I missed a
fun.
lot.
There's a
Yeah.
lot. Yeah.
Yep.
I think it's like 50 of those, or 49 of them are the quarters. I feel like I never found the quarters. There was also sometimes the part of the game where you're going down the tall building.
Mm-hmm.
I just for some reason hated that part so much and like didn't want to explore. I just wanted to get through it as quickly as I could.
Hi, me too.
I was playing it the middle of the night. I hated it.
I think those are called spooky reasons.
Yeah.
I had one
confusing.
collectible I had to get on that entire level, and it was the very last one. So I had to replay it twice.
Nope, I'm not looking for it. I will be playing that on the easiest settings when I go back through because I really hated that part. Almost more than the hospital.
Yeah.
The hospital base part, almost more.
Did you guys get spoiled on the game before it came out?
I'll just start because I feel like I might be the only one. I didn't actually see the spoilers. I don't know how, but I had muted almost every single word of The Last of Us and Neil and Troy Baker. Like I just muted everything and refused to even if I saw a tweet, I wouldn't look at the comments because I knew that's probably where they were. However, the big spoiler that happens at hour 2 is something that I was anticipating, and not because of I wasn't spoiled for it, but just from someone who writes and really loves narrative storytelling. It's what I would have done. Maybe not in that way or at hour 2, but I was expecting it, but I wasn't spoiled for it. So I got to go into this game with no knowledge of it and just being able to experience it as it was meant to be told.
I got spoiled on the hour 2 thing.
Mm-hmm.
And it was right when they were first coming out. Twitter auto-scrolled and auto-played a video. And I saw maybe 3 seconds of it, and I was like, okay. And that kind of succumbed my expectations for the game as a whole a little bit. Not much, but that was really the only thing that I got spoiled for. After that, I muted everything and just did Twitter like normal.
Mm-hmm.
So I heard that there were spoilers, and I panicked because the same thing-ish kind of happened before Kingdom Hearts 3 came out. And I was not going to let anything ruin my 13 or whatever year wait for Kingdom Hearts 3. So I went completely dark off Twitter, didn't get spoiled for that. So when this came around, I was like, oh boy, do we got to do this again. So I set up a mute list. I tried it. And then someone had some tweet that was up that was like, hey, these people are spoiling things. So I did my due diligence, block the screen, block the people. And I was looking through the replies of their more profiles, and someone had said, you mean like this? And there was a video, and it started to autoplay, and I immediately just quit. If we want, I can say later when we talk spoilers what I saw. It's not a spoiler of what I saw, but I just can talk about it in that section. But I saw like a fraction of a second. It fascinated me how much detail your mind can pick up in that much time. But I don't consider myself as having gotten spoiled, but just could assume things, blah blah blah. But that was enough for me to completely like I was off Twitter for like 2 months. So I went in
Wow.
relatively unspoiled.
That's
Especially not with what
shocking.
happens later in the game. Yeah, it is. Because
Yeah.
I wonder what the numbers would be for how many people got spoiled, but I felt like every one of my friends that I knew who was excited for the game had gotten spoiled for it, except
Same.
for me.
Yeah, that's why I was like, oh, I'll start, because I
Yeah.
thought I knew Christian had been spoiled a little bit, so I just figured you had as well. Don't spoil things, people. I just don't do it. I don't know why. Like, that's not fun for
Please.
anybody.
Yeah.
Please,
I
we're
had to
begging
turn
you.
off my YouTube watch history and search history for 2 months. So when I was watching hour-long videos and I want to resume them, I had to remember where I was. It was really annoying for 2 months.
I lost my family.
My house burned down.
It's
Unrelated, but I blame it on the spoilers.
My dog died.
Oh my! Oh,
Because, no, we're getting dark.
Dogs, yeah.
Oh, that's a great thing. We can talk about dogs.
And
How many dogs did you kill? Next question.
Oh, I really wish they let us know how many dogs we killed.
Should have heard me playing my platinum run last night. I was like, oh, there's a dog.
Boom.
Oh, there's another.
In the beginning, the first time I had to kill a dog and I had to listen to it in my ears, I took my headphones and threw them across my bed and like put my head in my hands, and I was like, no. I was like, nope, I cannot do this. I was like, I do not want to hear the crying of a dog being beaten to death by my own hands. But by the end of the game, I was like, dog, boom. Like, no, because dogs were the worst, and every time there is a level that had like dogs, I was like, they have to die first, and I'm sorry, but
So I think that's pretty much it for our spoiler-free section. So once again, now, if you,
I don't think that
that was not
no,
like
that was
that was not. I want to say legible, but that's for handwriting. That was not anything.
leave. If you have not played this game and don't want to be spoiled, leave, because we are about to get into it right now.
we're in the spoiler zone.
What are we talking about? The structure? How about that?
Where we want to like start? Yeah, I guess we can
I'd say
kind of
what
talk
what
about-
what we were just talking about spoilers.
Yeah.
So Christian, what'd you get spoiled on?
I saw 2 seconds of Joel on the ground, beaten to a pulp,
Bloody. Oh.
and that's all I saw.
What all? Actually, I should have looked up after, but what was everything that got spoiled in that video?
I think
So my friend sent me a clip, and I think there are multiple clips going around because I'll
Mhm.
talk about the one that I saw. Because I said I would do that. I want to make sure I don't forget. But I saw Ellie. I could tell that it was Ellie, and she was running into a room, which we know what part that is. And I could tell there was something, a body on the ground that I assumed was Joel, but I couldn't. I made out those basic details. I didn't see that his body was bruised, bloody, and beaten. I didn't see much of that, so I freaked out at first because I was like, what if that was that scene? Like, what if that was his death? Like, I didn't know for sure it was, but I kind of talked myself through, and I was like, even if it was, one, I don't know that it was. Two, I don't know how it happened. I don't know why it happened. I don't know what leads up to it. I knew no context whatsoever. So I don't feel like I was actually spoiled. But
Okay.
Yeah, all I saw was 2 seconds of the close-up on Joel on the ground. That was literally all I saw. And I know me and James have a friend that had seen somebody who's changed their Twitter name to Joel dies and Ellie dies. So the entire time he was thinking Ellie died too, but we know that didn't happen.
Interesting. I saw a lot of that this past week as well, so I wasn't sure if there was something in spoilers that made people think that she actually died.
I think everything that got leaked was Joel getting killed, and then the scene of Mel holding the knife to Ellie at the aquarium.
Yeah.
So people, I guess, assumed Ellie died.
Mm.
Okay.
And I think that's all really that got leaked, because afterwards I looked into it.
A little bit more. So shout out to my buddy Zach. He said he would watch this. So if you're watching this, there's your reward. I love you. We've been talking so much recently. It's been awesome. He's a huge fan. But he sent me the video that he had seen because he like screen recorded it or something. And it was actually weird because it wasn't the final version of what they used, but it was the Joel's death scene, but wrapped around the scene, like the beginning of it, showed the context for Abby's motivations. So that scene that happens later, it played it, and then it was her killing him. Which...
Ooh.
Interesting.
Yeah, so, I mean, obviously, they played with structure a lot in the game. I guess that was an early version of how they may have done it. But
really I'm glad if that was how it originally was, I'm glad they changed it.
Me too.
And that they put that at the end.
For me, I almost want to say I wish they had done it a little bit as similar to what Ellie's little PTSD moment at the very end was, where she has the quick flash, just that one little...
She's in the barn?
Just that 1 second of Joel's face. I think it would be really cool if they had done that with Abby, where as soon as she swings that golf club, it's just one flash
her dad on the ground,
her dad smiling or dead, or one of those.
Yeah, because it could have just been him, because she walks
that would have
in
drawn
and sees
the
him on the
parallel
hospital
even,
floor.
Yeah.
Interesting. But I kind of liked that we didn't know.
Well, and that's what I'm saying. Yeah, like they could have done that even in the... Because don't they do that in the... No, because even then it's before we knew about her dad, so that wouldn't work. You're right.
I think we start playing as her before we know, and that made... So when I first started playing as Abby, I was like, fuck this. I was like, you're making me play as Abby? And I knew, I was like, I know they're going to do something that's going to make me like, I'm going to feel for her. I was like, I'm a huge empath. I was like, I just know it. And I was like, but I didn't care, and I was angry. But they made it so much more than that. They made her a full character and just gave her so much depth. But eventually learning her motivations, I think it helped that I had already grown to like her as a character before even realizing what her motivations were for killing Joel and her path for revenge. They did it so well, and hats off to Naughty Dog for pulling that off, because that is very tricky. You're on the tightrope there, because you could have miserably failed at that, but I think that they succeeded.
And that's like the main part, that whenever you get to Abby's part and you play as her for a little bit, and then it pops up Seattle Day One again, that's the part where me and James were playing similar time frames, but James had something else going on, so I got a little bit ahead of him. And I remember texting saying, oh my God, I can't believe this is what they're doing. And James was just shushing me because he didn't want to know what I was talking about. But even when it said Seattle Day One, it clicked with me. I was like, holy crap, they're going to make me play all 3 days of Seattle again from Abby. Like I
just got goosebumps.
See, I just did too thinking about it.
Yeah.
And because even as soon as it said Seattle Day One, it's almost like whenever it says a title card in an MCU movie, I'm just like, it automatically just makes me think, and I'm like, man, we're gonna have to do this all over again to see exactly what she was doing while Ellie was doing all the stuff that we just did as her. And that storytelling just from the title card got me so jazzed. I was like, okay, people are gonna hate playing as Abby, but I am so excited to see exactly how this all plays out.
Well, especially since when you were playing as Ellie, there were so many moments where you could hear in the background, like, oh, Abby, you hear Abby's name and you're like, We're like,
she
when am I
went.
going to finally meet up with Abby? And yeah, with that, when you said that click, that's what it felt like for me. It's like every piece just clicked into place, and I now have like full body goosebumps because that's how I felt in that moment when I saw Seattle day one again. I was like, I can't believe they're doing this.
And in retrospective, I have a coworker, James loves the story, where I remember I'd already beaten the game at this point. And so I was sitting in the break room at work on my lunch break, and I'm always on my laptop with my headphones on. And my coworker, Sam, comes up and taps me on the shoulder, and I take my headphones off, and he just goes, I know you beat the game, but just tell me, do I have to play as Abby for the rest of the freaking game? And I just kind of looked at him like, I'm not going to say anything. And he just goes, God damn it, and just walks away.
He knew.
Your silence was the answer.
Yeah, I just kind of gave him that look.
That's
like,
great.
I don't know, bro. And he's just like, and he just walks away. Anyways, but
well, yeah, it's about perspective, and I think I liked the structure of how they did the story and how they'll switch the perspective. Like as the player, you're taking along for a lot. Like kind of going back to Joel's death and how we liked not having the context. It seems like all of us liked not having the context for why Abby did what she did. I thought it was interesting how leading into it, you're following Abby, and then you kind of see the beginning of her starting to torture Joel, and then it switches, and now you're back over Ellie's shoulders. And from that point on, it's totally from her perspective. Like the player is Ellie from that point. Like that's the beginning of her arc. And I thought it was very interesting how the player is made to feel a parallel of what Ellie feels. So, and this was very similar to how they made the first game. I went back and I watched the Grounded, the making of The Last of Us, which was the documentary they made around the time Remastered came out. And they talked about how their whole idea for the first game was that they wanted the player to feel like Joel at the beginning. Like, who is this girl? Why do we need to do this? And they wanted the player to grow with that relationship. So they'd feel everything from start to finish, and they'd have that same love at the end that those two have for each other. And I feel like they did that in this game too, especially with the beginning, because I felt myself grieving. I felt myself like anguish. I had rage. I was like, I want to kill all of them. Like everyone in that room, I want them dead. I want that. And I had questions, just like Ellie had questions. She didn't know. She could have made, you've kind of find out, she probably could have made some assumptions. But for the most part, she didn't know who Abby was, why Abby had done it. So we're left with the same questions that she is in that moment, those same exact feelings. And I thought that was so cool. But at the same time, they take a leap doing that, because I think so much of whether or not this game hits for you depends on if you buy into that. If you like Abby's arc, if that arc lands for you, I think the whole game lands for you. And I'll jump ahead even to the end when you are having to fight her. I didn't want to.
Yeah, I think that was the point.
And that's how I know it totally worked for me. But I know
you
I just kind of
mentioned-
covered the whole spectrum. We can kind of try to narrow back in, but wow.
I just want to touch on, because you said like the whole perspective and looking over Ellie's shoulder. Playing this game, I could tell that they made it through the lens of a filmmaker. Like this game, it's like they put storytelling first, and really its perspective is everything. And when you watch Joel die, you're watching him die through the perspective of Ellie, because you were watching over her shoulder. You are Ellie in that instance. And the whole grieving process, like I cried a lot during this game. However, when Joel died, that scene, I wasn't even crying, because it was like that process of grieving where I was in shock and so angry, and I felt like Ellie in that moment, and I could believe that he was dead. Like I thought he was going to die, but in the way that he died and so soon in the game, it was so shocking. And that's why I think, like, if they had even done a flashback to Abby's motivations in that moment, my anger would have trumped my understanding and ability to empathize with Abby in that moment. So I couldn't. And I think you are given enough time in the game to, once you finally play as Abby and once you finally understand her motivations, you are kind of removed enough and you have healed a little bit along with Ellie. You see her kind of grow slowly, which is understandable, but in that moment you've kind of processed your own grief and you are now able to see Abby as a person who is also hurt and grieving and is on the same path that Ellie is, and they're just two halves of the same coin. And I think I mentioned that to Christian at one point. He was like, it was before I had even played as Abby and knew what quarters was. And Christian, he's like, I'm just gonna say one thing. He's like, where are you at the game? And he's like, are you quarters? And I was like, oh. I was like, no, I'm not where I thought I was. However, I was like 10 minutes
like,
from that point. I was like 10 minutes. I was
shocked.
I had stopped the night before when Jesse had died. So I was literally at the cusp of when I was about to play as Abby. Because I was like, I feel like I'm at the midway point. And you're like, quarters? And I was like, I don't know what you're talking about.
F in the chat for Jesse.
Yeah,
but jeez.
And even
F in the chat for Owen. I feel like Owen and Jesse deserve better.
Even like as far as like grief goes, like, so because I saw Joel's quote unquote death for 2 seconds, and then me automatically thinking video game, it's going to be the very last thing in the game. Mm-hmm. And then it happens at hour 2, and I'm like what you said, Kaitlyn, I'm not even like grieving yet. I'm not even like sad. I'm like in shock, mainly because of the storytelling aspect of it. I'm like, so they just killed Joel in hour 2. What is the rest of this game going to entail? And as far as like losing that character, I didn't even really feel sad about it until you get to his house. And you see exactly what Ellie's going through. And you see the pictures with Sarah, and you think about the first game, and then just everything else that really didn't hit me. I think that might have been the first time I cried. Was whenever
that was when I had to pause.
Yeah, whenever you get to Joel's house and she smells his jacket, because we've all been through that.
Oh, yeah.
And it's just like, holy crap, it was tugging at the heartstrings, especially that moment in particular for me personally.
And you knew what she was going to do too. I remember, I'm like tearing up thinking about it. I remember her going into the closet and seeing his jacket, and I was like, I know what she's going to do. Yeah. Oh, I really am tearing up.
I can say differently, because unlike you guys, I was unable to keep any of my composure. As soon as that scene kicked off, I pretty much assumed what's going to happen. I think I went through the denial phase immediately, where I was like, he only got hit in the head with a metal thing once. There's still hope. His kneecap is no longer there. There's still hope.
He
did only a huge gash.
If only he had as much plot armor as his brother.
Yeah, because Tommy died like 3 times. Touch on that later.
Oh God, yeah.
We'll get there.
All right,
but
we will get there.
Like with that scene gripped me so viciously, and I felt it holding on to me for at least the rest of Ellie's arc. Mm-hmm. But as soon as she was there and she saw that and seeing like, wow, she literally is going to witness like her father figure die, and like in front of her, I was like a freaking mess. I think it was the worst I've ever been during, like, maybe besides like the ending to the Titanic. Like, it's like the worst I've ever been. Like, I was sobbing because Joel might be my favorite video game character ever. Mm-hmm. It's like Joel and Arthur Morgan are probably like my 2 favorite characters ever. I loved Arthur. He actually might be my favorite, but different topic. I like Arthur but holy crap, RDR2.
We could do a whole episode just like on the similarities between Last of Us 2 and Red Dead Redemption 2.
I named my
the greatness of sequels.
I named my horse Boy in Red Dead Redemption 2.
Yeah.
So he was calling it Boy, but all right. And I named my horse
I
Boy
love
afterwards
that.
in Breath of the Wild. Doesn't matter. Getting back to Last of Us. I want to give a shout out and praise to Ashley Johnson's performance during that scene, because I don't think in anything that I've seen, I have heard someone express through their voice and through how torn they sound what it must feel like to literally have your heart like ripped out of your chest. The way she was emoting, and with the animation, the way her face, like the burning rage, the awful sadness, and when she's like, Joel, like, you get up, like
you see every flicker of emotion just in her eyes.
Well, and then
that floored me.
It flips so fast to Joel, get up, please don't do this, to I will fucking kill you. Is verbatim what she says repeatedly. And it's just the I feel like we're gonna get goosebumps a lot.
It's just like I full body, can't stop.
And it's just like you can really see, especially because if you've seen the behind the scenes stuff for even Last of Us Part 1 during Sarah's death scene, seeing what Troy goes through whenever he's acting in scenes like that, you can only imagine what Ashley is going through thinking about it, because they do love these characters. They feel like they are these characters to a certain extent. That's just how good that. I know the whole entire cast is just amazing.
It's like it's just every actor in this game is.
For Troy and Ashley specifically, it's just I keep getting chills just thinking about it.
It's only a matter of time. I'm gonna tear up at some point.
I am teared up.
I've already teared up once, but my glasses hit it. And just, good God, if games could get an Oscar. This one is a shoo-in for best acting for anything that they've done.
Movies aren't coming out this year. No matter what no matter how hard Christopher Nolan tries. They should just give the Oscars to games this year. Just rewrite
no matter how much Hunter still wants to sit in the theater, apparently.
Yeah.
to see Tenet. Poor Hunter.
Yeah, every time it gets delayed, our friend sends a tweet. He's like, "Oh, not again." I'm like, "Why are you so shocked?
Why are you so mad? Like, nothing is coming out."
Yeah, like, you will eventually be able to see it. We'll move on.
There were so many moments in this game, and I'm say, in contrast to you guys even further, I cried within the first 15 minutes of the game when Joel sang to Ellie.
Yeah, every singing moment
got me so bad. And I'm glad that I can say both Part 1 and Part 2 made me cry within the first 20 minutes. I'm proud to say that. But I can't get that song, Future Days by Pearl Jam. I cannot get that song out of my head. Like, you can ask Christian. Like, every time we're talking on PSN, I'm like, if I ever were to lose you. Like, I keep just slipping into it. Like, I can't.
So even last night, I was playing it and I was just powering through it to get to areas, because I was just like, I want the platinum before we do the Spoilercast. So I was
not to brag about it or anything.
Not to humble brag. I have the platinum trophy.
Oh, you did get it?
I got it last night at 2 a.m.
I feel like I missed that. Awesome. Congrats.
And that is a big congrats, actually, because I don't get platinums very often. I have I think Last of Us Part 2 is maybe my 5th or 6th.
That's awesome.
And but I was at the part, and I was even like skipping cutscenes and stuff. I was just like, I just want to power through it. Don't want to be emotionally conveyed again. And I got to the part where you find the guitar in the theater, and Ellie started singing it a little bit, and I was like, okay. And it was like she had just finished the song when James joined the PlayStation party, and James was like, "Hey, what's up?" And I'm just going, hey, what's up, dude? And he was like, "So what's going on?" I was like, "Nothing." Ellie just sang Future Days for a little bit, and it's hurting me a little. So even just the part of every time she sings that song, I was just like, and even on my car rides to work, I just have the Pearl Jam version on repeat. I just can't stop listening to it.
I ugly cried at that part. every time she picked up a guitar, one, I think the Take On Me is the best musical performance in a game ever. But every time she picked up a guitar and was playing like the Future Days, and then at the end when she like can't actually play the guitar and she leaves it, I was like, even though I think I was crying more just about the symbolism of the guitar and playing than the fact that the game was over. But I was ugly crying, full on sobbing, snot, like everywhere. I was a mess of a human, and just, yeah, I feel like we could talk an hour about the symbolism of that guitar and music and how.
Let's pick a segment for symbolism and just dive into it, because there's so much.
There's so much. But the whole game is just riddled with symbolism and mirrors and.
Well, do we want to talk about that? Because I know James has a lot of thoughts on the symbolisms.
Probably too many. I'm just gonna start rambling. I mean,
go ahead.
That's what we're here for.
Some of them are stolen thoughts, because I was reading a lot of what Neil Druckmann had said, talking about like what the moth means, and I'd listened to a couple Spoilercasts, one of them that he was on. Shout out to Kind of Funny. It was really good. If you've not watched the Kind of Funny Spoilercast, go watch it, because they had Neil, Ashley, and Troy on, and it was fantastic, even though Troy had to leave early. But he hadn't finished the game, so get out of there. But they talked about a few things about the moth. On a symbolism level, it just like a moth chases the light, it was like Ellie chasing her revenge. Mm-hmm. And they talked about in the game how they would describe it like she was like a drug addict almost. Yeah. And she couldn't stop chasing it. And by the end of it, it's finally her letting go. And then on another level, the moth also represents Joel and Ellie's relationship. Mm-hmm. The moth is on the guitar that Joel gives her at the beginning of the game. And it later becomes the inspiration for her tattoo of the moth and the fern. So every time she looks at that tattoo, in addition to just having the bite and remembering what happened with all that, she's reminded of Joel. Yep. So it's very intentional that the game both opens and closes with that shot of the moth on the guitar. And again, so much you can read into. She leaves that behind at the end, and she walks away. So you can see the moth, and you can see Ellie walking away because she's comes to peace with it, and she's moving on wherever she's going on to. We don't know, of course, unless
I feel like I had made that. Please, I feel like I made that connection, like with the moth. Like to me, it represented her and Joel's relationship, but I didn't. Because I haven't watched the Spoilercast yet. I tried not to watch any of those before we did this, just because I was like, I just need my own opinions before everybody, the experts, that will seep into my brain.
I've been corrupted. I admit it.
Yeah, so have I.
Yeah, I couldn't resist it.
The fact that represents almost like she's a drug addict makes so much sense, because like at the end, like she's not sleeping, she's not eating, her relationships are falling apart because it has completely consumed every part of her. And I know like when she leaves Dina, and Dina's like just with every soul of her of her being, she doesn't want Ellie to go, and Ellie like understands that she can't, like she's just completely consumed with this revenge, and she needs to see it out. And almost like a drug addict, like just it's the only thing that she can think about, and it's her only motivation, and she cannot hold relationships or move on.
Especially because even at the farm scene, because it's all so peaceful, and they have their house, and they've got their land, they've got animals, and they've got the baby, and then it clicks to the PTSD, and you're like, oh, it's not over. Because I was literally at the point where I got to the farm, I was like, okay, this is the end. This is the end. You know, they're done with the fight. Abby said, don't ever want to see you again. Abby
let her go again.
Yeah, Ellie took that to heart and was like, okay, we're done. And then the PTSD happens, and then Tommy shows up. And I'm just like, oh, come on. And it's it really struck home for me because, like you said, it's like she's just she cannot give this up.
Mm-hmm.
It's the last thing on the list that needs to be done. And no matter what Dina said, her mind is already made up.
Yeah.
We know that. She's, like, Dina could have said anything. And, I mean, she did say anything to get her to stay. But Ellie's mind was already made up. It had to be done.
I'm going to say that.
I think Tommy showing up was the straw that broke the camel's back, really.
Yeah, exactly.
And that just struck me again because I remember getting to that farm scene after everything is done in Seattle. Ellie gets back, has the ideal life. It's very idealistic. They have their farmhouse that Dina had talked about
Yes, I
in
was just
Seattle
about to
day
say.
one, that she would want to get a farmhouse. I noticed that going back through again. I'm like, that's so cool they alluded to that.
Oh, I called that when that happened. I called it
Yeah.
out. I was like, I knew. I was like, they're gonna end up on a farm.
Because even
so-
Ellie says something like, "You want to raise sheep or something?"
Yes.
Mhm,
Yep.
Yeah, but I keep, like how I had said earlier about how the player is meant to feel Ellie's emotions. I didn't feel satisfied as that being the ending for the game. Like when they had that moment where she was walking around with JJ, which means Jesse Joel, don't even get me started. When she sat down with him on the tractor, and I swear it felt to me like the game just paused for like a minute, and she doesn't even say anything.
It did pause because you had to like move the stick for her to get off the tractor.
Yeah,
You could
I
have sat
didn't
there
move
forever.
it. I sat there for a long time.
I sat there for like a minute, and I was just thinking, and I was like, this, like, I love this game, but this better not be where it ends. I was like, I didn't feel easy with that ending. I was like, it's too perfect. Like something is still wrong. Like can't go through all of this and still just and have it just everything's
just
all
satisfying.
sunshine and daisies, you know. And it was one of my favorite moments ever when she just, it was sad, but I was like, heck yes, there's more. When she decided to leave, I was like, what is this game gonna be? And then finding out that you get a whole nother location, which was short, but I think it was the perfect amount. The Rattlers were interesting. I would have liked to see a little bit more of them, but from what we saw, like we saw enough to know like these are bad guys. I almost feel like by introducing a group that evil, they were almost like giving the player a bit of a break and being like, it's okay to kill these guys because they really suck. Those other guys suck, but not as much. These guys, they really suck.
Yeah.
But there was so much stuff they alluded to them with the pit or whatever, where I'm guessing that either send people in there to be chewed up by the infected they had chained down there. Like,
did you let the infected go?
Yes.
Oh, same. It was I loved it.
That was so much fun.
So I'm dumb and couldn't figure out how to. I wanted to let that clicker loose so bad, but I was like trying to shoot the chain with the silence pistol.
You had to sneak up to the chain and press like triangle.
And see, I
you
thought
get the
about
little prompt when you sneak up.
And see, I thought about doing that, but I was like, if this clicker turns around and eats me, I'm gonna be pissed. So
I had to like run away. It doesn't? I feel like
it doesn't. Well, I love the design so much. I would like to think this was design where you see the way that it's trying to go after them. Like it's yanking on the chain like towards the Rattler, like the one who's like literally bullying that one guy where he's like, haha, I told you I'd do this to you. And I was like, I want to let that thing go. I missed a collectible there. So when I went back, I stealthed my way over to that chain while he was still talking to the one he was bullying. And there's like a little trailer thing to the left of the chain, and I positioned myself in there, and they give you enough room to hit triangle while you're completely obscured. That thing launched and immediately went for his throat. And it was so satisfying because that dude was such a jerk. Like,
I loved when I let them go.
PC to get their revenge.
I like had it so where like everything's black and white, and I just like watched their like the figures like chasing after, and I could hear in the background people screaming. I just kind of like watched them do that through that mode, and it was just so satisfying that they were going through and killing the.
It was like
Rattlers.
Where you're in the tunnel, and there's clickers running around, and then the wolf. Was it wolf people or was it the?
No. It was.
Wolf.
It was the WLF down there.
And it's like, oh, I can just throw a brick and these clickers will kill these guys. I
God,
wish that, and
I did that too.
Mess them up real good.
Yeah, so I just threw a brick over by the WLF, and the clickers just took care of them for me. And then if I've got 3 Molotovs, that's clickers dead. And I wish they had done more of that in the game, where it gave you the opportunity to have the world play out as it should.
I'm glad we both did that though, because you can absolutely just go in there and not do that and fight each of, like, you could have fought the WLF, and then you could have went and gone and fought the clickers. But yeah, I was sitting there and I was like, I had a bottle on me or something. I was like, I can just throw this bottle. And
it was either a bottle or a brick.
and it was so satisfying. I was like, yes, kill each other so that I don't have to.
My only major complaint with the game was that once you had a bottle or a brick picked up, you couldn't switch. I'm a brick boy through and through. So every time in The Last of Us Part 1, if I had a bottle and I found a brick, I'd pick up that darn brick, and I was locked into the bottle. Why? They're stripping features. They're taking features away from me. I need that choice.
Choose a bottle or a brick.
It says a lot about the game when that's
It
your
does.
biggest gripe, but I digress.
I guess if we want to talk about gripes, the only thing that I felt, and I think we've kind of mentioned it, was just the pacing. I think at the end, I think Santa Barbara, even though the game was so long, I don't know, I just felt like I wanted to know a little bit more about the world there. But before then, when Tommy showed up, I just felt like I needed to know a little bit more about how Tommy got to be in the mindset that he was in. Like, I can draw there's context. I mean, he lost his wife. I can't remember if they were married. Maria was, and his eye, and like, I understand he's pissed, but he was just like, I don't know, the way he was talking to Ellie. A lot of people are saying it was out of character. I don't think it's out of character. I think anybody can get to that point, but it just felt very, like, I don't know. The pacing felt off to me.
And to me, it showed that he'd been sucked into the cycle too. Because Ellie was clearly still there. He was rattled by the events that happened in Seattle. And I imagine him looking in the mirror, seeing, like, he was scarred permanently. Like, that had to have weighed on him. And maybe they wanted to leave the player room to figure out what that meant for him. I will say, gripes, I don't want to say that he was a wasted opportunity, because he was great and he had some really good lines. I love the thing about the whether or not it was real gold, with the bracelet that he was going to bring to Maria.
Yes, yeah.
And even as Abby, when you come back and you know what's about to happen, but he's standing there talking to himself. He's like, not real gold. Like, I love the levity that he was able to bring when he did. But I was talking to another one of my friends, and we both thought they were going to do a lot more with Tommy, because you're kind of following his trail of destruction. And I was like, wow, are we going to see, like, if they said it was about revenge, is this going to be about Ellie seeing, like, the lengths that Tommy goes to, and maybe she'll have to like be at odds with him at some point, or have to kind of pull him out of that or talk him down? Or I thought they were going to give him a really interesting arc, and he more served as like a sub or complementary arc to Ellie's, rather than having his own fully fleshed out thing. And he just kind of popped up at certain points, which was fine. But I would have liked more of him. I wanted to know more of what he was up to. I think it would have been way too much to have the player, like, play as Tommy, because that wouldn't have fit the structure. But
no,
I even think
they could have done more.
There were some points when you're playing it, and I kind of noticed this last night, where you're playing as Ellie and you're going through areas, and, like, say there's already some scars that are dead in certain areas, and then it's like, she's thinking, oh, Tommy must have really came through here. But then some parts where you're like, it was probably Abby. It was almost like Tommy was this and I realized this last night, it's almost like Tommy was more of this martyr of Ellie thinking, oh, Tommy's been through here, Tommy's on this rampage, da-da-da. It was probably Abby. in certain areas, not all of them, but playing through Abby's portion of the game, and you go through, I can't remember exactly the areas, names and stuff, and there's some scars, and you kill the scars, and then going back, you think about what Ellie going through that same exact area, and thinking, oh man, Tommy really did a number here. It's like, probably wasn't Tommy, it was probably Abby going to find something else.
My favorite moment is when you're playing as Abby and the sniper, and you're trying to get through you want to kill this sniper. You're like, God, you're like just pissed off, and then you realize it's Tommy, and you're like, oh no, I like this person. And you're like conflicted, because I remember there was a part where he was a little far away and I couldn't tell that it was Tommy, and I was going to shoot at him, and it didn't register that I had hit him, and I was like, that's weird. I was like he should be dead, and I was like, why can't I kill this guy? And then I get closer, and then I was like, this is Tommy, and obviously that's why I can't actually kill him.
I think it was as soon as that mission started, I was like, it's Tommy. It has to be Tommy.
I don't know why I didn't register that. I just was like, oh, I was so mad at this sniper.
There's also go ahead, James.
Go ahead. Oh, I made the connection a little bit because I realized they had totally set him up where you were sniping as Ellie with him.
Yeah.
So they already set him up that he has this like ridiculous distance sniper rifle.
I was like, that had gone over my head.
And
I see what they're doing here. I both like it and I don't.
Yeah, and that's like the part of you realized it was Tommy and like, oh, I don't want to kill him. I think it's so smart that granted, you have to play as Ellie first. The twist where you play as you play as Abby, and you start to learn to love her friends. You learn to love Manny and Owen and Mel and
all the
Alice.
Side characters.
And
all of them. Yeah.
So then, especially like that mission where you're going to the aquarium and you're with Manny, and then it's like, Manny's dead, got sniped, and it's like, oh, I kind of liked Manny.
He was a bro. He was hilarious.
Yeah, he was a homie, and then, which granted you kill Mel and Owen as Ellie, so you knew that one was coming. And
that was so much. Oh, that was so much worse knowing it was coming.
But they do that a lot, where you learn to love these characters, and like you learn to love Yara and Lev. And I think Yara's got the worst part in this entire game. I mean, she loses a whole entire freaking arm, and then you're going through the island where the scars live, and it's like, she's dead too. It's like,
oh, but she got to kill Simon, and that at least she got a little bit of satisfaction in her death. But yeah, when she died, I was like, it was one of the shocking moments where it
happened so fast. I felt like I didn't even witness it. Like all of a sudden, she was just dead. I was like, oh, okay, wow. Like,
yeah, you're like, was that Yara?
Time to react. Yeah.
Yeah. And they did such a great job with all the side characters. And like when you kill Mel and Owen as Ellie, like early on, you're like, okay, you're like, that sucks, and we're moving on. And then you get to play as Abby, and the whole time I loved Owen. I loved his character. Mel was an okay character in my opinion, but still her death, and she was pregnant, and like that's awful. But playing as Abby and just like learning about her relationship with Owen, and I just was like, I was so upset, and I was like, I just didn't want him to die, and he wanted to go to Santa Barbara, and the whole game was kind of also setting up Santa Barbara in that way, and everybody kind of was hearing things about this area and the fireflies, and just walking up to the aquarium with Lev and Abby and just knowing what she was going to find was very heartbreaking to me, and I didn't want her to go in. I was like, no, just turn around, go somewhere else. Like, don't go and look at that, because it's awful.
I just had a thought, maybe an epiphany, maybe just me reaching. When you are,
or maybe all of those,
or all of the above. When you're playing as Abby in Santa Barbara, when you find that radio,
Mm-hmm.
and she's talking, and she's so excited to find the fireflies. What were? Do you think that was the fireflies on the other end of that radio, or do you think it was the rattlers?
My first instinct was that it was a trap. That it wasn't actually, that the fireflies really are no longer. And I don't know.
And it was the rattlers?
Yeah, I never really thought that it was them. But I was open to it being them. I mean, we never find that out.
I think it was the fireflies.
You do?
Because I didn't think they gave any indication of trying to trap her or anything. And she goes outside and she's ambushed immediately, but they didn't try to get her to go outside. They didn't give any indication to lead her towards the rattlers to get captured. So
well,
I didn't find anything
they could have just been
in what
I
they
don't know.
said.
Well,
they could have just been on that channel nearby and been like, okay, she gave the address. They already had people nearby, and then immediately she walks outside and she's captured.
Yeah, that was my thought, where they're like, oh, well, where are you?
Mm-hmm.
And she says, oh, I'm at the address. And then as soon as she walks outside, she's ambushed.
Right. They had no reason to ask where she was.
True.
She just needed to know where they were.
So and I just had that thought when you said fireflies in Santa Barbara. I got to thinking about that.
Mm-hmm.
And if they were the fireflies, they should know their own locations. They probably shouldn't have had to ask.
Exactly.
Because the is it rattlers?
Yeah.
Yeah. Because they could have found that location as well, also saw the frequencies and just been like, okay, we'll just leave this here for someone else to find, but we'll also be monitoring these frequencies. Because she found it. Why couldn't they have found it?
Mm-hmm.
Shout out to Logic, who played the smaller rattler at the very end.
Oh, really?
Yeah. He tweeted that the other day, and I was like,
oh, that's awesome.
I was like, who did he play? I was like, who did he play? And I looked it up on IMDb, and sure enough, he played Small Rattler.
His name was Small Rattler, the third.
The third. Oh, I wonder if they have a bunch of other small cameos that we just don't know about yet.
I looked. I couldn't really see any.
I don't know. Oh.
Isaac was Jeffrey Wright.
Yeah, Isaac was Jeffrey
Bernard. So that was definitely a cameo because he was only in a couple of scenes. They teased him a lot, but we only really got to see him twice.
That was one of those where they talked about Isaac a lot, and it's like, okay, I really want to know who this guy is, and you finally meet him. He was very intimidating for me.
Jeffrey Wright is able to. His voice is captivating. He's able to give a really commanding performance.
Yeah,
I really like that. Yeah,
he's just everything about him is his whole presence is just captivating, and I'm trying to think of what else do we. I guess we've kind of talked about playing as Abby. Can I just shout out to Abby's arms?
I was just about to ask you.
I know. I was kind of waiting for you to ask me because I told you to ask me about Abby's arms.
I was about to.
If you don't already know and don't follow me on Twitter, I am in love with Abby and her arms. And I would like her to put me in a chokehold, please and thank you.
Jesus.
Or other things. It's fine.
I feel like most of us, we could just talk about Abby the entire time because she's the new character.
Yeah.
And even last night when I was going through that football stadium, and I think I even said at one point, James, I was like, I would like to live in a football stadium. That would be.
You just ran well. I guess at that part.
I was like, this is just really cool how they did
really
this.
Cool. Really cool.
The apartment being in one of those the studio boxes,
like the boxes.
Yeah, the boxes.
I think that's exactly when I said that, and even just thinking about it, I was like, because I was talking with James and our friend Hunter, and I was like, why would these apartments be co-ed? That's kind of weird. And then you get to thinking about it, and you're like, it kind of doesn't really matter if they're military. Mm-hmm. And then you walk into the apartment because it has their nameplates of who lives in. Yeah. And you walk into the apartment, and I just got to walking around, and I was like, I never went to Manny's area. I was like, oh, he likes anime. Oh, he likes photography. And then I'm like, I'd like to live in a football arena. That would be really fun.
It is. Yeah, I feel like I could just go back to that part and walk around that world for so long. It's just so interesting how they had like how they were growing food and the dogs and like just I sat and played catch with the dog for so long because I was like, this is kind of a nice little break. Like
a fun thing to do is to throw the ball over the fence and the dog gets sad.
I was
Did
happy
you do that
to
on purpose? Christian.
I was happy to be throwing a ball at the dog instead of a Molotov. Let's just put it that way. Because I Molotoved a dog and I didn't feel good.
I never Molotoved a dog. But like
I did.
I did axe a dog in the head and stab it in the neck, and so like
it's what I had, and it was racing at me, so I chucked it.
Quick, R2 or whatever.
And it writhed and it cried. And I felt really bad.
I just have that sense of disbelief where I can just kill a dog and be completely okay with myself for it.
In video games.
All right, clip that.
Yeah,
I just need before in a video game.
I volunteered to edit the video instead of Christian, and it will just be that one line.
No. But
Christian reveals his darker side. I can kill dogs and feel nothing. I don't want to laugh about that. What's wrong with me?
I don't know. But just the world building in that first bit of Abby's area specifically, because even me and James both experienced, we never talked to Manny's dad, and he has Parkinson's, and they like mention that when you're walking downstairs with Mel and she's asking Manny, well, maybe we can just get him some more painkillers or something like that. But did you talk to Manny's dad in that area, Kaitlyn? Well, you notice like his hand is shaking and you're thinking, and I was like, oh man, because it made me feel for Manny more as a character. Mm-hmm. And I'll put this out there. I didn't really care for Owen. It was kind of just a basic character in my opinion. Even last night when I was playing, I was doing the flashback mission with when you find the aquarium for the first time, and Owen's just talking, and I'm just like, shut up. Just shut up. I don't care what you have to say. Ooh, let's look at these kids' pictures in this boat. Shut up. I'm leaving. I don't care.
I feel like
it was a cool location.
It was a cool location, and he just had such he just wanted to live a peaceful life, and I felt like
part of him I respected.
Yeah. He was kind of a shitty person in all other regards with how he treats Mel and Abby. But I think it's just because nothing is happy in this game. I just so wanted him to be able to have one happy thing and to go to Santa Barbara and live on his boat with Mel. And I think he needed to be separated from Abby.
He grew so disillusioned with the WLF. And I liked seeing that transition in him where he wanted nothing to do with them.
Yeah.
He's like that. I believe he says, and I might mess up the line, but when did we stop looking for the light?
Yeah. He's not someone who's meant to be a soldier. That's not in his DNA.
And that's the thing about him and reaching from the kind of funny Spoilercast where Owen's a Firefly. So especially that line, when did we stop looking for the light? That just goes even deeper into the symbolism of, Abby and Owen are fireflies and Ellie's a moth. And they're just the complete opposites of their story intertwining.
Yeah, but they're also, fireflies, but moths are attracted to light. They're just, it's just one of those things where it's they all have similar goals. Mm-hmm. They've just become the means, the means justify the ends are just different for each group. And they've kind of just it's all about cycles. They're kind of are stuck in this cycle of violence when it could just stop and they could live just peacefully.
Well, and they keep mentioning that truce that they had with the scars. Mm-hmm. And
they're called Seraphites.
Okay.
My boy Lev. Call them Seraphites, please.
Seraphites? Please stop calling us scars.
I will protect him.
I did like Lev. He was a very good
additional
character, especially because he was such. I mean, he's a kid, but he's also a badass.
Mm-hmm.
But he also did have, those questions where you find the flamethrower and he, what does that do? Abby says, you know what dragons do, right? Breathe fire. It's just like, it reminds you that Lev's a kid, and even though he grew up in that world with the Seraphites.
Thank you.
And him being like a transgender character and living with the Seraphites, and once he doesn't belong with the Seraphites because they don't accept him for who he is, and even his mom like tries to kill him in the end. And so like he is questioning the Seraphites' ways because he's like, why am I a part of these people if like they can't accept me? And I think that whole story and Abby kind of like seeing that, it's just as soon as she meets like Yara and Lev and they save her, it's just like she just starts questioning everything, and kind of seeing like even this young kid is questioning the people that he has grown up with and has identified as his whole life. And she's like, she didn't grow up with the WLF, she was a Firefly. And I think it just kind of fuels her questioning their motives as well, and being like, do I actually believe in what they believe in, and are they doing the right thing? And if not, and she realizes that they're not, and that's not her family. And I can't remember the line she says to Lev, but kind of like,
she says, you're my people.
You're my people. Yeah, I was like, I can't remember. She calls them family.
So
but that moment, I was like, yes. Like, I wanted to cheer for Abby so much.
Yeah, that was like...
He was like, why are you fighting them? They're your people. And she said, no, Lev, you're my people.
Yes.
And that was so good.
Ooh, I also again.
Liked, like learning about Lev and how he had been grown up with that kind of Seraphite cult,
mentality,
religion, whatever you want to call it. But I thought it was interesting that even though he'd been like spurned from it, like it wasn't working for him, he still like took the parts of it that meant something to him and clinged on to them. And I thought that was a very, like, the way this game kind of deals with faith. I'm Catholic, and I don't see a lot of games deal with those type of themes at all very much. And it was interesting to see this game kind of mix like a more secular spiritual view, which was interesting. But like with Dina, when you're in the synagogue, was talking about that. There was an interesting article I read where someone said that they were a lapsed Christian, and that related to them so much, where like they don't go to church every Sunday, but they still like they pray every now and then. And they thought it was interesting to hear a character express that in the same way. Where she said, like, I say a prayer every now and then. It was very nuanced for a character to go into something like that. Yes, there's the Gene Park article.
Yeah, I was like, I know I had retweeted it, but I was trying to, like, what he said in his tweets. There was like one of his tweets that just was amazing. But kind of, he's like, we have all these stories about like where we play as gods, but why don't we have games that kind of like talk about our relationship to them? And that really spoke to me. I'm not a religious person, but I truly appreciate those who take the best parts of faith, and I do really enjoy those stories. And I think people's relationships with their gods and with faith are important stories, and they're not touched on often in games. Go ahead.
Even back to Lev with the transgender part of it, where I didn't even know he was transgender. Even after playing the game, I didn't even think twice about it. They did that so perfectly, where, I mean, they basically tell you that he's transgender, transphobia, or whatever.
The Seraphites, they dead name him a few times during the game.
And just this game did that so perfectly, where it's not like they had oh, let's add a transgender character so we can have a transgender character.
Mhm.
And I think it's crazy to see the parallels where this game came out and how our world is today and what everything going on, how it just another parallel.
Mhm. Yeah, I just want, yeah, it's a very diverse game. I mean, you play as a woman who is gay, and like, just like, screw all the people that have always said like, oh, a woman on the cover of your game won't sell. Like, that's obviously that's not true. Yesterday, it's
4 million in 3 days. Clearly not true.
4 million
Yeah.
in 3 days, the fastest selling, yeah, PS4 exclusive to date.
Sorry, Spider-Man.
Sorry, yeah, we love Spider-Man in this house though. But yeah, it's just
It could have only done
they're real
3.1.
they're real stories, and I think a lot of people can relate to these characters, and that's important. But you also don't have to fall into the buckets that they fall in to relate to them. They're human, and I think that's important. That's important to tell, is that even though someone's gay or transgender, they're human, and we all have similar experiences and feelings. And
Except for
you
clickers.
saw that from everyone. You saw that from the whole cast. Like I really praise the character building that they did.
mm-hmm.
Like we've said before, I can't believe that I felt as much for the other side, where the other side started to feel like my side.
Yeah.
Like that's such an accomplishment. I liked what you had said kind of when we were talking about pacing earlier, Kaitlyn, about how like you needed that time with Ellie and you needed that time with Abby, but you needed that to be spaced out.
Mm-hmm.
I'd seen some critiques about how they should have kind of like interspliced it, maybe like switch back and forth between them during the days, but you needed to let those arcs breathe. You needed to, with the character, to understand what they're going through. And I liked that their stories were so different. How Ellie was just focused on her revenge. Where is Abby? I need to kill her. I need to do this. Whereas Abby has she's been through that already. She dedicated herself to getting that revenge, and she's on the other side, and she feels like that's not done it for her. And I liked that her story felt detached from Ellie's because she was in a different place. And I feel like it would have been less for her character development if she had been like paying attention, like if she'd been consciously avoiding Ellie. Like I'm glad she wasn't caught up in that until it came and it hit her like an 18-wheeler, and it just collided with her own like redemption arc that she had.
Yeah.
Like we were talking about the lines with her and Lev, and it was either Yara or Lev. I keep forgetting who it was, but at one point they're like, why are you helping us? And she says, I'm just trying to lighten the load a little bit. And you realize
she's like, I'm doing this for me.
Yes.
Yeah.
And you realize that just like Ellie realizes before she goes through with her revenge, that she wasn't satisfied from it. She had dedicated so much of her life to it. When Owen's like, hey, let's go be all coupley, and she's like, nah, man, I gotta go get training. I gotta get them gains. It's like she's putting everything, and that ruined that relationship. It's all about the gains. It was all about the gains. Got to turn into a chiseled killer so she can be ready to murder this guy at any time. But I just thought it was fascinating to see the different sides of where they were in terms of trying to achieve their goals. And I keep saying
they were at different points.
They
were at different points in their journey because
and I think that made Ellie giving up, or not giving up, but letting go. She let go. She did not give up. She very much did not give up. She pursued her to the ends of the coast. But I think thematically that made her choice to not kill Abby more believable, because we saw that there was no satisfaction. There was nothing good to be found from seeing that all the way through. But she needed to hit that rock bottom before she could realize that. And touching on to more parallels, because I said I kept like noticing stuff. When she flashes and she sees the non-PTSD image of Joel, playing the guitar,
Mhm.
Yeah.
which about to give myself chills again, but
I just got chills
there.
again.
When you then see that conversation and how it was about her being open to forgive,
Yeah.
that's what she
I want to
thinks
cry
of in
thinking
that
about
moment.
that
That's what she
conversation.
thinks of in that moment.
I like that at the end, it's not an option, similar to in the end of the first game where you have to shoot the doctor, or you have to do even if you shoot the doctor in the foot, he's still gonna die.
Mhm.
Like, it's how the game is supposed to be. Because even I know for me, and this might make me a bad person, but when I was fighting,
No, never.
when I when I was fighting Abby at the end, I've never pressed square so much. I was just like, just let it end.
Monster.
Just holding her underwater. I was just pressing square so much. I was just like, I just want this to be over with. And then she lets go, and I'm just
Like, oh, thank God.
I'm like, okay, it's over. Whether she's dead or not, it's still over. And then she lets her leave, and I immediately thought, okay, that's what Neil wants.
It's what Ellie wanted.
Well,
Just like you said with the first game, that was Joel's story. Whether or not you wanted to kill that doctor, Joel was killing that doctor. Whether or not you wanted to kill Abby, she was letting Abby go. They were both so fiercely their own characters. I love that so much.
I just feel like I need to say this because I don't know why this has happened. Not every video game needs to be a choose your own adventure. Not every game needs to give you the option to choose something. That's not what games are always meant to be about. And I don't know if it's because we've just had a lot more of those this generation, and that is a theme in games, is to kind of choose how you want to play. You don't need that. Like, people who feel like this game forces them to be violent and like all this stuff, you can play without actually killing a lot of people. Like, you can do that. But the main points of the game to drive the story, like, this is a story and they're telling this story, and you don't get to decide how that story is told. It's just like, I don't know. I just keep seeing a lot of people really pissed off about that. And The Last of Us, the first part, wasn't like that. Why? I don't know why anybody anticipated the second part being like that. This isn't that kind of game.
It's not like we go to the movie theater and choose which version of Avengers Endgame we want to go watch.
Right. However, we're getting the Snyder cut of Justice League, so I feel like we are diverting from just the vision of a movie being one story and it being over with. Though I am excited and I will watch the Snyder cut, but yeah, I don't think you need to be. I don't think every game needs to give you the satisfaction of being able to choose how you want to play it.
I think so. Since we've pretty much covered most spoilers that we can still think of, do we think we should get a part 3? Do we want a part 3? What are we thoughts on sequel, spinoff? What do we want? I know we're getting is it Netflix TV show?
HBO. Yes, I'm excited for that. I forgot about that until just this moment.
Yeah. So I've been thinking a lot about whether or not I want a part 3. I feel like I could feel either way. I feel like the final conversation they had, for me, even though it didn't chronologically take place at the end, that felt like the perfect end cap for Joel and Ellie's relationship. Mm-hmm. Like when Joel says to Ellie, if the Lord gave me a second chance, I would do it all again. Mm-hmm. Like that broke me. First off, crying scenes again. That guy was a freaking mess. That might have gotten me more than his death. But that was everything that I was looking for from their relationship with each other. Like that, we didn't need it cemented, but that did cement it. And they're not the kind of people who'd be like, oh, I love you. Oh, I love you too. Like they have such a profound love and respect for each other that they don't need to say it. And they're just both not very emotional people. But that did it for me.
James, didn't you tell me you wanted them to hug right there, but then you knew that they wouldn't do that.
Yeah. Part of me was like, I want them to like have a moment, have an embrace, have an I love you, but that's not those characters. And I can appreciate that, and I'm perfectly happy with the way that they did it. But I of course will take a part 3, and I was thinking the first game was about love, the second game was about hate. If I could pick what part 3 would be about, I think I would want it to be about hope and about like redemption, like love, hate, hope. So it's kind of like the build up, breakdown, rebuild.
I like that.
I don't know what they do with that. Like, I don't have a story pitch. They can write it a lot better than I can, but
You
I
play
don't
as
know
a
what else
clicker.
to say outside of that. But yeah, you play as a clicker. You just like you could be the Batman. Now you can be the Zambi. So
I think they could do a whole game with Abby and Lev. I mean, the last we see of them is like riding off into the horizon, and like you could just have a part 3 where it is just literally picks up from that point and of them arriving to shore, and their story could be about hope. But that last scene, so you like started ugly crying about when Joel was saying like he would do it all over again. I was also like full on waterworks. But what really got me was when Ellie was like, she's like, I don't know if I can forgive you, and then like second later she's like, but I would like to try. And because like that is just their love for each other. And to me, like I've always said, like that first game was about the lengths a parent would go to save their child, but the second game is it's the child's relationship to the parent and the lengths that she will go to
great point. Holy crap.
Yeah, to revenge his death. And that's their story, and their story is now finished. Like I cannot have a part 3 with either of those characters in it, because we have reached a natural conclusion, and this game has always been about those two characters and their relationships with one another. So if there's a part 3, it would have to be a spin-off, and it would have to be, I feel like Lev and Abby. I just cannot see any other
Spoiler
stories with
alert,
them.
Abby and Lev turn into Kratos and Atreus. Abby is the god of war.
Did you notice the bow? Did you notice the bow?
Oh wait, I love
pretty
that.
obvious. It's pretty obvious.
She gets some tattoos.
Oh,
She changes her hormones and grows a beard.
yes.
She did like swinging axes.
That moment where she starts sporting the tank and her arms are unfolded.
We're back on our arms, Jesus.
I
Christ.
just can't. I can't. I will bring it up at any opportune moment because I didn't.
We've brought it back to the natural discussion point of Abby's arms.
Yeah, if people are not aware, I am bisexual, and my sexuality is now just Abby's arms.
God.
They need to add that as an option for when you're asked.
Can I romance her arms?
Other, please specify Abby's arms. I love it.
If you know, you know.
I'm a strong woman.
I would like a part 3. I don't know what it, like we all said. I don't know what it'd be. I would like it just because I love, especially now, I love this world that they've built, especially with all of the additional factions. I would just, the world building for me in this game is the best part for me personally. I was just so invested in, like I said, I'd like to live at that football field, or everything that they built with the Rattlers. And how did they start? Are they just a bunch of crazy people that decided, hey, let's start putting people on poles and in pits and surviving that way? Or it was almost like a death camp. There's probably symbolism in there that we didn't even find. But I would like part 3 just because I'm selfish and I like playing video games.
But
hear me out. The Last of Us, The First of Us, Make it prehistoric. No, I'm just kidding.
It's a clicker dinosaur.
I want to hear that
No.
sound design now. Damn.
Ugh,
I-
I do
I-
not.
I don't either. I don't actually think we're gonna get a part 3 though. I feel like Neil and everyone at Naughty Dog is probably. It just feels like such a good conclusion that they should have the option to work on new stories and new ideas, and who knows what that will bring. But I will play whatever they put out.
Yep.
Hands
I will
down.
too. Holy crap.
Could be Uncharted with Nathan's daughter. We don't know.
Could be.
Or a new IP.
Yeah, I think I'm ready for some good new IPs.
Yep.
All right.
I think that's about it, guys. If you enjoyed this, please let us know. If you have any thoughts, comment down below.
Yeah. Add us, talk to us on Twitter.
Talk to us on Twitter. I'll put our names at the end of the video. James, thank you for joining me and Kaitlyn in our little brainchild.
Thank you for having me. Holy crap.
Yes,
This was
please.
great.
I would love to do this again.
Yeah,
Yeah.
never done a podcast before, so this was really fun. Thank you both very much.
Of course.
And we will see you next time.
All right. Thanks,
Bye.
guys. Bye.